Hey, it's Chuck, and I'm here to give you an introduction to how logic works within the Figma plugin Kernel. So the best way to think about this is that it's a data-driven way to change the variant or boolean properties for an instance of a component. And so that might sound a little scary, but there's a few real-world examples that we can use this for, such as showing whether an item on an e-commerce site is already inside your cart. You could toggle a transaction within a financial application to show whether something has been purchased using currency conversion or whether it's been purchased in your home currency. Or lastly, it could be for a health tech application, where for patient requests, we might want to indicate whether a patient needs urgent medical attention. So there's three things that you're going to need in order to make this work. First, you're going to need a component with at least two different variants. Second, you're going to need some data. I'm going to use one of the provided kernel Google Sheet examples so you can follow along with me. And thirdly, you're going to need a configuration to map all of the different layers from your variants to the data in your data store. So first, we're going to need some data. So let's make sure that we've got the plugin open, and we can look at our content databases. So by default, we get the profiles database. What I'm going to do is copy over a link to the Google Sheet example. So this one is users and products. So just copy that link. And what you can do is add a new library, hit Google Sheets, and enter it here. So there's a couple of ways to do this, and there is a video for that, so you can go check that out below if you like, or go find the link in your own time. We'll give that a moment to import, and that should give us all of these. Next, we're going to need a component with a couple of variants. So here I have pre-prepared two different variants for the same component. So I'm going to call this a user badge. So what I'm going to do that is to turn these into components. And what you may notice is I've already pre-named them so that I can toggle the variants on it. So if I highlight both of these and combine, we now have a new component with two different variants. So let's rename this user badge. And now you can see that the properties have been pre-filled because I have preset the name of its constituent parts. And lastly, we're going to need to create a configuration for this data store and this component. So once we've selected the master component, you can click on create a new configuration. So that's what comes up by default. And what we need to make sure of is that inside the layers of both variants, we're linking up the right data to the right layer. So in this example, we have the key or the field called age. So we'll map the age to the age input there. We also have the name of the user. We also have their email over here. And we have an image for their avatar. So make sure that that's the case for the large one as well. And once you're done, you can hit create configuration. So I'm just going to save that as the default naming. I think it's a sensible convention. And now to check that they're working, let's take a few instances of this component and check that all of the data populates to the correct fields. So all we have to do is highlight these, and then we can hit apply all, and that should fill it with sensible data. So now that I've done that, I've verified that I've hooked up the configurations correctly. Let's double check that that also works for the small variant before we continue. And that looks good to me. So next, now that we've checked that the data works for both of the variants and we've made a configuration that works for them, let's check out the available different conditions and the logic that we can do. So for example, if we go into here and we edit the configuration, so let's view the configurations that we have, and in this example there's only one. If I click edit, what you'll notice is that you have the master component over here and the two variants for it as well. So if you select a instance of your component, that's not going to provide you the controls. I actually struggled with this the first time myself. So make sure that you click onto the master component in order to start using logic with kernel. And here you'll see once you select the master component, you can look at different logical conditions. So for example, if the age is greater than 50, then we can set the size to small, for example. Or if the age is equal to 88, then we can set the size to large. So if we save that configuration and we highlight these again, when we go back and then reapply, what you should see is that the first example for Christy, who is 88 years old, that will become the large variant and everything else will remain the small variant. So that's a very simple example and a way to show you how to toggle different variants when you apply data, which is why I said this was a data-driven approach to toggle different variants and different properties of your component. So there's a few different things you can do with your configurations and a few different things you can do with your logic. So if I select the master component again, you'll find that age is a numerical data type. So that means it's just numbers, there's no letters in there at all. And you'll find that it gives you a specific set of logical conditions. So it's greater than, less than, is equal, or is not equal. You'll also see that there are other things such as for string data types, so names, emails, that sort of thing, and you'll get slightly different conditions. So here you'll get a lot of similar ones, like is equal and is not equal, but you'll also get is empty. And is empty is quite good because sometimes you want to generate a set of data where naturally it can become empty. So one of the examples, if something is on sale for an e-commerce site, if it's empty, you can display the normal variant, but otherwise you can then display the item that is on sale. So you can use that to attract attention and guide the user to look at particular things and set the visual hierarchy for yourself. There is also an image, so you can use images, but I think the thing here to know is that it doesn't actually give you any possible options. So you can see here what I set before was is equal, but there are no options available for logic currently with kernel. So those are your two main different conditionals that you can do. There are the data types of number and the data types of strings. So the numericals, which are just numbers, and then anything else that is text, it's going to be your string. And you can set slightly different conditions. The only extra one being if the text or the string version is empty. So if you want to check if something is present or not present, don't use something that's numerical based, use something that's text based. From there, you have the available results. So I've shown you an example here using a variant, but we can also use a boolean property. So depending on particular conditions, we can toggle whether a boolean property is activated or not. So let's use a little example here, such as let's use the age, I would say. So if I select, let's zoom in a little bit just so it might be easier for you to see. So we select this master component and let's quickly add a property. Let's add the boolean property. Let's say show age. And we can set it by default to true, so it's easier to work with. And now let's stitch that together with this layer. So this is the age layer, show age. Now that should be hooked up there. Oops. And if we do the same here, we can do show age there. Excellent. So now when we select the master component, what we need to do is make sure that we hit reload component, is what it says here. So this is important for you to be aware of when you're inside your workflow and you're trying to model your component at the same time as updating your configuration and the logic that you'd like to apply. So we hit reload, now you'll be able to see the show age example. So if the user's age is greater than 50, let's hide the age because people over 50, let's pretend they don't want to reveal their age, right? So we save that configuration. Now, when I select all of these and I go back and apply to all, now you can see for anyone whose age was above 50, they have been hidden. So that's not even the most incredible thing that you can do. I'm going to show you that you can add multiple different conditions. And now the sky is the limit based off this logic. So let's take something here such as the .edu email, and let's make those particular user badges large. So we select the master component again and view our configurations and click edit. Then we can see the single condition that we have. So what I'm going to do is leave the size as small, so everybody should have a small badge, and you should hide the age. Let's add another rule as well. So if the email includes .edu, then I want the size to be large. And so you can mix and match these all together. And I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty certain that these apply in order, these different logical conditions. Once you hit save configuration, that should now apply. So it won't apply to your instances that you've got. Remember, it's a data-driven approach. So every time you apply data using the kernel product, then it will apply those conditionals that you've set inside your master component and your configuration. So let's highlight all of these, and to avoid using the same data, let's hit shuffle. So this is a very good way just to check whether something's working or not. If I hit apply all, then we should see that only people with a .edu email have a large user badge. And in addition, anybody who is over 50 will hide their age. So we can see here one of the nuances actually of conditions, which is why programming and being a software engineer is a job. You can see that these people over here are over 50 years old, and this person here, we've said they should have a large badge but show the age. So combining those conditions, you need to think through your logic because they apply one after the other. So you can see if it applied it first, it would have hidden the age because they were over 50, but then the second condition kicked in, which is they have an edu in that list of conditions that I set. So then in that one, I've toggled it to have a large user badge and to show their age as well. Great stuff and well done, because if you followed along and managed to get it working in the same way, this is one of the most powerful things that you can do using the kernel plugin in Figma. So we went over what logic is and a few real-world examples, and we understood that kernel takes a data-driven approach to applying logic to your components within Figma. I showed you what you need to get started, so the 3 different things of a component with 2 different variants, a data store, and a configuration that maps your component to that data store. I've showed you the available conditionals that you can use for both data types of text and of number, and I've shown you the possible different results that you can drive within your component, as well as going through that worked example end-to-end for you. I hope that was useful, and I hope you can use that to generate some really incredible and interesting prototypes and really incredible proof of concepts and examples.